I am a chiropractor here in Boise, for those of you who don't know me. I'm also a natural medicine doctor, and a big part of my practice is dealing with the side effects of toxins. And I didn't really know what toxins were until about 6 or 7 years ago. I started to investigate this pretty carefully, and I kept hearing doctors over and over again say that detoxification is good for you. It can help with these problems from digestion to sleep to chronic pain to autoimmune conditions, learning disorders. And so that got my attention. And since that point in time, years ago, I've spent a lot of time looking through the research, and what I'm going to share with you tonight is going to save you the 3,000 hours of work, and you're just going to get to see the pearls that will put a story together of how the toxins in our environment impact us. So I want to start this talk off with a video that goes, it's short but very well to the point. And for many of you in the audience, it may cause you to second guess something that you do every day. And that is, you're going to second guess the products that you're putting on your skin. Probably you have something in your house that may in fact be more toxic than you thought it was. And this video really sums up this issue very well. It's called The Story of Cosmetics.
This is a story about a world obsessed with stuff. It's a story about a system in crisis. We're trashing the planet, we're trashing each other, and we're not even having fun. The good thing is that when we start to understand the system, we start to see lots of places to step in and turn these problems into solutions. Can I tell you, I love my Pantene Pro V. Of the dozen or so personal care products that I use every day, it's the one I can't live without. It says it gives my dull hair the ultimate cool shine. How does it do that? I was wondering that while I was lathering it in my hair one day, so I read the ingredients right here. Sodium lauryl sulfate, tetrasodium EDTA, methyl isothiazolinone. What is this stuff? I took this list to some scientists who know how to read it. Turns out my Pantene contains a chemical linked to cancer. And lots of other products in my bathroom, from sunscreen to lipstick and even baby shampoo, also contain chemicals linked to cancer or other problems like learning disabilities, asthma, and even damaged sperm. Like most parents, I try to keep my family safe. But now I find out my bathroom is a minefield of toxins? What are we supposed to do? To find out the answers, we have to go back to one of the key features of our materials economy: toxics in, toxics out. If, at the factory, you pour toxic chemicals into a product, like baby shampoo, you're going to wind up with toxic baby shampoo. And toxics in workers, communities, and, babies. So let's take a closer look at this toxic outrage where it seeps into our lives every day, in the bathroom. The average woman in the U.S. uses about 12 personal care products daily. The average man about 6. Each product containing a dozen or more chemicals. Less than 20% of chemicals in cosmetics have been assessed for safety by the industry's safety panel, so we just don't know what they do to us when we use them. Would you fly in an airline that only inspects 20% of its planes? Of course, not all of these chemicals are dangerous, but we know that many are. Some are carcinogens. That means that they can cause cancer. Others are neurotoxins and reproductive toxins, proven to mess up brain development and reproduction in animals. Wait a minute, we're animals too. It's like a giant experiment. We're using all these mystery chemicals and just waiting to see what happens. One thing we do know is that they're getting inside us. I had my body's toxicity levels tested, and I'm loaded with things like mercury, flame retardants, triclosan, and lead. We all are. Even babies are being born pre-polluted. Now, I know we can't live in a lead-free world, but do we have to put lead in our lipstick? I don't know. Maybe it's my fault. Maybe I just bought the wrong thing. At the store, the choices seem endless. I can get lipstick in 49 shades, or shampoo for hair that's too dry, oily, fine, limp, or frizzy. But what about the choices that really matter? Like the choice to buy products that are safe? It turns out the important decisions don't happen when I choose to take a product off the shelf. They happen when companies and governments decide what products should go on the shelves. So who are these companies? This is Procter & Gamble. They're the ones offering me Herbal Essences, the #2 shampoo in the country. It contains toxic petrochemicals made from oil. Since when is oil an herb? On cosmetics labels, words like herbal, natural, even organic have no legal definition. That means that anybody can put anything in a bottle and call it natural, and they do. I mean, can you imagine a top seller called Petro Essences? Gross. What's even nastier are hair relaxers marketed to 5-year-olds and skin whitening creams. These are super toxic, both in their ingredients and in the message they send about what beauty is. Ooh, here's Estee Lauder offering me a chance to help find a cure for breast cancer. That's nice. But wait, they're also using chemicals linked to cancer. Don't you think the best way for Estee Lauder to fight cancer is to stop using those chemicals in the first place? So really, I get to choose between meaningless claims on a bottle. But these guys get the real choice about what goes into those bottles. And that happens back here, at the factories where they're formulated. Why do the makers of these products use all these toxics? Are they trying to poison us? No, they're just working from a 1950s mindset when people were totally swept up in better living through chemistry. In all that excitement, they forgot to worry about human health impacts. That was years ago, and they're still using these same old toxic chemicals. Today, big cosmetics companies say the doses of poison in their products are small enough to be harmless. Yeah, maybe if you use them once a year. I guess they never get out and see that their products are being used and combined with other products every day. A little toxic dose under your arms, a little more on your hair, on your lips. And workers in nail and hair salons get dosed all day long. So the industry is used to doing things this way. And they can. Because even now that scientists have linked the chemicals they're using to all sorts of problems, there are no laws to get rid of them. You're thinking, really? Come on, nobody's making sure that the stuff we smear all over our bodies is safe? Nope. The FDA doesn't even assess the safety of personal care products or their ingredients. Since 1938, they've banned just 8 out of over 12,000 ingredients used in cosmetics. They don't even require that all of the ingredients be listed on the label. Now, this is an example where we can all agree a little more government action would be helpful. This lack of regulation leaves a huge hole that the cosmetics industry is all too happy to fill. They set up their own committee to self-police their products, and compliance with their recommendations is voluntary. So the cosmetics industry is making the rules and then deciding whether or not to follow them. So you see, it isn't our fault that these toxic products are in our bathrooms. It's a whole broken system that's ignoring the simple rule: toxics in, toxics out. But we're not helpless. There are resources online that we can use to protect ourselves by identifying the best possible choices in the store. But the real action is with people working to change the system. Because if we really want to solve this problem, we got to start here with these guys. Women, parents, workers, people all over the country are demanding that Congress pass a new law, giving FDA the power to make sure that our personal care products are safe. We need common sense laws based on the precautionary principle. That means that when you're dealing with hazardous chemicals, just err on the side of caution. Let's not debate how much lead should be allowed in lipstick. Just get the toxic chemicals out of our products. Smarter laws would force companies to get past that old 50s mindset and figure out how to get us all clean and shiny without toxic chemicals. Can they? Totally. Many responsible cosmetics companies are already putting safer products on the market. Green chemists are developing substances that are designed to be safe and non-toxic in the first place. European governments have required the removal of many toxic chemicals, and companies have figured out how to comply. When cosmetics are reformulated to be safe and labeled honestly, then we can feel comfortable with the choices available at the store. We can choose bouncy hair or full hair, shiny lipstick or matte. We can even choose to feel beautiful without using 20 products. But we'll know that whatever we choose, the most important choice, the choice to be safe and healthy, has already been made.
Okay, so that video I thought really captures one segment of the issue, which is what we put on our skin. And the takeaway, what you should know from that is basically if you wouldn't eat it, you shouldn't put it on your skin because it's going to go to the same place. It's just the way it works. And she says in the video, you know, we're not responsible for the toxins in our home, something to that degree, and I would say that that's not really true. I'd say we are responsible. We have to take responsibility, and so that's why you would come to a store like this to pick your personal care products, and many of you probably already do, you know. But that's just an example of one small segment of our consumer economy. It doesn't look at, you know, the new car smell and what that's made of. It doesn't look at, you know, what your house is made of and why if your house catches on fire, it's not really the smoke from the fire, it's all the release of chemicals that are released when stuff that we've purchased burns. And so the big idea is that toxins are everywhere. It's just, that's the world we've inherited. You know, it's happened. And a lot of these chemicals, they have staying power. That means they're not going to break down spontaneously and turn back into dust or water and blow away with the wind. They're going to stick there and be reactive for a long time. That's important because inside of our bodies, in order for us to get toxins out, we can't just hold on to them for 50 years and wait for them to become less toxic. We need to actively remove them from our body. And we've all been equipped with a method, several ways for your body to do that. So that's the good news. But these are some of the sources of toxins. I mean, you see this in the news. Lead paint was a big deal years ago, asbestos, you know, lots of different sources of exposure. So we have to just realize we're all being exposed to this. Everything that, all the medications that are prescribed in a city, in a municipality, it's still legal to flush them down the toilet. So whatever medication your neighbors are on, in a way we are in essence all on, if we drink the tap water. So if you drink soda pop or go to, you know, McDonald's or Carl's Jr. and drink out of the fountain, you know, that's tap water, right? But if you drink filtered water, you protect yourself. But that's another source of exposure. And one of the big toxins in the water supply ends up being birth control, as a matter of fact. So they've been able to link areas of the world, cities, where more women are taking birth control, there's actually more prostate cancer. Women take the estrogen leaves their body, goes into the water supply, and then go down to the pub, go to the restaurant, drink the water. They get the estrogen, and then they have an effect on them. So just, you know, it's all related. What we do in our house does affect our neighbors in terms of how we dispose of this stuff. This is a picture of a GMO corn facility in Britain, and I would suggest, and we'd probably all agree, if that's what you have to wear to look at the crop, it's probably not safe to eat. We're one of the worst countries in terms of protecting the consumer against unknowns such as GMO, which is definitely a big unknown. This is a study performed in France, and they fed the mice in this study, GMO corn. And that's the result. A lot of tumors of the internal organs, digestive system, liver and kidney. So that's what GMO food does. That's why we eat organic. That's why we're very careful. That's one of the negative side effects of processed food is not just the high carbohydrate content. It's that these GMO crops are like Roundup delivery systems into your body. The reason they're genetically modified is so they can just spray a really nasty poison on the plant, and the plant doesn't die. Well, the plant's covered in it, and then they feed it to us, and now we get it in our gut, and it starts to affect the bacteria in our gut, and they're linking gut bacteria to all kinds of things: anxiety, depression, pain, syndromes, insomnia, you know, learning disorders. The gut is a huge, important part of our body. It's like an ecosystem. So what we eat has a huge impact. The United Nations came out with this report recently, and basically what it says is the key to our food problem on this planet is to go organic. You'll fix all the problems with like rabid, you know, pests that are too aggressive, that are eating the crops. You'll fix the monocrop problem where if one bad year destroys all the crops. And so they're basically, the UN says the same thing that we would probably all agree, and that is that organic agriculture is the best solution for the future of feeding everyone. So hopefully the trend continues in that direction. I've seen reports that the growth of the organic food industry is like 2 or 3 times faster than the average industry. It's like 4 to 8% year over year. So it doesn't take many years for it to double and double again. So there's more stuff going on. But even the United Nations is waking up to the negative side effects of all the toxins that we have used. This one is a slide I show often, and it's really, really important to understand that when scientists study a population, let's say they look at, fish in a stream or water or birds in an ecosystem. Well, some of the things they notice is they take note of how many males are born, how many females are born, do the babies survive, how big were they, how big was the litter. They're looking at all this data, and we've known for a long time that toxins, that like if you poison something that a hawk eats, then that hawk gets the poison in it, and it spreads it to the rest of its family. But basically, toxins build up in the environment and they travel up the food chain. That's really the moral of this story. And the bigger predators, we're the top of the food chain on the planet, so we concentrate everything. But toxins that we've created, that we're exposed to, act like estrogens. There's a movie on the internet called The Disappearing Male, and it's a good expose on this topic. It has some hard-hitting science, and what it's saying is that chemicals like BPA are similar enough to estrogen to act like estrogen in our body. So the consensus is now that most of the toxins that we've created and put out into the world, when they get into our body, they act like a hormone and they act like estrogen. It's not good for men and it's not good for women, and I'll show you how this is kind of unfolding. But we're giving birth to fewer male babies in our society. Statistically speaking, there are fewer male babies being born. Male children are larger. The mom has to be healthier, so there's one strike against having a male baby. A male baby's hungrier, has to have more calories and needs more vitamins and nutrients in order to grow. Another strike against male babies. So if a mother's body is stressed or toxic, the odds of miscarrying a male baby go up versus a female, and you end up having more females being born. However, Mother Nature solved this problem when things were balanced and used to have more babies born male than female, because male babies, if you have a son, you would understand, they like to take risks, and they would maybe get hurt or die before they hit puberty, and so by the time we hit teenager, there's about 50-50 in our population. Make sense? This is a really sad story, because this is a Native American reservation in Quebec, and the government of Canada allowed like a petroleum refinery to be built on 3 sides. I think there's a river on one side and petroleum refineries on 3 sides. And they've been following this group of people, and when they first had this reservation, they had about 55% of all babies born were male, as I was saying. A slightly higher level of male birth rate to female is normal. But as this petroleum refinery you see in that picture was built and went into production, over time that changed. And the latest data for 2003 shows that about 35% of babies born are male in that group of people now. So we are no different than them. We just live on a bigger reservation. Okay? Toxins cause changes in our bodies, and they're very profound. This is a study looking at United States, fewer males being born statistically. Toxins in the environment, and that video it mentioned it can lower sperm counts, cause asthma, other things like that. What these toxins do, I mentioned already, they act like estrogen, and so our brain is programmed to have a certain number of sex hormones in the body. It doesn't really care if it's a testosterone molecule or an estrogen molecule. It kind of weighs them the same. They kind of go in the same category. So if you take an individual who's born male and you give them a lot of estrogen, they will in turn produce less testosterone, because the brain goes, well, there's enough sex hormone in their body already. So that's how this process works. It affects the brain, and the brain communicates down to either have more testosterone produced or less. Same is true in females. But they were studying here pesticide applicators, and individuals out there applying pesticides, the males were suffering really low testosterone and sperm counts. So here's a big source of infertility on the male side. Anyone dealing with infertility, you lose your zinc levels and your testosterone goes down, and then the sperm that's made aren't in the right shape, and it can harm fertility. It can get fixed though. Another just really interesting study, looking back, kind of zooming out, looking at the last few hundred years. This was a study showing where or what age women were when they first had when their period started, when they had menarche. And you can see in 1850 in Norway, which, kind of a general European country, 17 years old. Get into the 1880s, we're getting into the 16s. And now in 1950, when the last data was shown here, we're looking at 13 years old in the United States. There are stories of women, young girls as early as 9 now. And as disturbing as it is, there's actually stories of like 11-year-olds being pregnant. And it's just kind of a freak news story, but it is happening. And the toxins that I'm discussing, the estrogens, are developing women at a younger age. It's like they're hitting puberty chemically, but not biologically. And a woman's lifetime risk of breast cancer is related to her lifetime exposure to estrogen. So we're seeing higher rates of breast cancer as well as uterine cancer, prostate, and testicular because exposure to estrogen is higher over a longer period of time, and that can cause problems. So another study came out recently that said that because of the way like people my generation are eating, they're aging like 10 or 15 years faster. So when someone who's 55 today was 30, a 30-year-old today is like 10 years older than that person. So 30-year-olds today are like a decade or a decade and a half faster towards disease, faster towards chronic disease, faster towards diabetes, faster towards other problems. And that's what this research is saying. And so over time, we really are genetic engineers with the choices we make. So if your parents ate junk food and then you grew up on junk food, it's like each generation's getting a little bit worse each time. And then we need to stop that process and reverse it, which we can do. So this is just more fuel to the fire. Then it wasn't really a study, it was kind of a journalism expose. And they asked families around the world, different countries, Germany, Saudi Arabia, in Africa, South America, to just pile up on your kitchen table what you eat for a week. And they're picking on this family, but a lot of people in this city and other places in this country probably eat a similar diet. And you walk into Walmart or you walk into Target and you walk out with that kind of food. And that food is not cheap. It's actually quite expensive. If you leave all that stuff out for a week or two, probably 3 or 4 things on that table will actually rot and not be edible. So this is, one reason why we're really sick in our country is because people continue to eat this way. It's all processed. It's probably all, like 80% of what you see on the screen there probably comes from corn. The sugar comes from corn. The cows that make the cheese come from corn. It's all kind of this vertical corn, soy, wheat, vertically integrated system, and there's no diversity. We don't get good gut bacteria. We don't get good vitamins. And our bodies do detox for us. They do. Our bodies detox every second we're alive. But the detoxification that we do depends on good nutrition. So if that's what we eat, our detox goes way down and our toxin exposure goes way up. A big part of what I focus on in practice is brain health. I'm a big believer in taking care of your brain in a healthy way. You're looking at 2 pictures. I made the colors on the right just to kind of visually show you the difference in volume between someone with Alzheimer's and someone with a normal brain. Same age. One on the left, healthy brain. One on the right, Alzheimer's. If you want to research more about Alzheimer's, the key words to use are type 3 diabetes. That's what they call it. It's the diabetes of the brain. Same hormones are involved, same processes, same solution, but we need to take care of our brain. Alzheimer's disease, according to the CDC, didn't really exist as a cause of death that was worth mentioning 40 years ago. 40 years ago, no one knew anybody with dementia, nobody knew the word Alzheimer's, it didn't exist. Maybe in rare cases, some medical specialists were studying it. But something happened 40 years ago. This is a chart that the CDC puts out showing the all causes of mortality. The 6th leading cause of death in the United States today is Alzheimer's. It'll probably go up. That line is still going up. So maybe it'll be the 3rd or 4th. And what happened is, about 1980, those of you who remember that will probably agree, There's this thing called the low-fat diet campaign, where butter was bad, margarine's got to be good for. Margarine's good for you. Don't eat red meat, it'll kill you. Don't eat eggs, they'll kill you too. I mean, there's just a lot of bad advice out there. That low-fat diet campaign, as well as the introduction of cholesterol-lowering medication, has had a really negative impact on brain health. As a society, you can see that the low-fat diet campaign is another word for high-carbohydrate diet. Okay? High-carbohydrate diet promotes diabetes of the brain. So even, when you know how to look at the information the right way, it just makes perfect sense. So that's what we're dealing with. And this is why toxins play a role in Alzheimer's. So I've given you some background on toxins, and they're everywhere. But why are they a problem? How do you know if your body's toxic? This is an important thing to recognize, okay? Because knowing the signs and symptoms of being toxic will be the first step in helping you know what to do to fix it. By far, the number one problem is a digestive issue. Absolutely. There are many, many people in my practice. The first thing they come in, they say, I'm bloated. My digestion is screwed up. I'm constipated for 7 to 14 days. Been that way for 40 years. Not anymore. We fixed that problem. But GI distress is the first place most people feel their symptoms, and I'll tell you why. Your gut is kind of a more primordial version of your brain. It has its own nervous system, okay? It runs on its own program. And it's very, very ancient type of stuff that our body does. It keeps us alive. It's one of the first things that forms when we're growing. And the gut is always growing and turning itself over. So when we go to the bathroom, most of the stuff from the toilet is our own dead cells, by far. It's not what you eat, it's just so that amount of cells are dying every day and regrowing. So your gut is always growing and dying. So if something interrupts the growth of your gut, you notice it right away. That's the point I'm trying to make. If your cells are dividing really fast and something happens where they can't divide, you're going to notice that. Whereas cells in your brain that divide maybe once every 10 years, those symptoms show up later. But your gut, who here has heard of leaky gut before? So I first heard of leaky gut, I thought of like a sewer pipe in New Jersey with like rust and this orange stuff dripping out. I'm like, okay, leaky gut. I have a better metaphor for you. Leaky gut is like when you're going camping and there's a lot of bugs around and you're inside your tent, you're really glad that screen is nice and tight because you could be inside enjoying yourself. You're at peace, you're not being bothered by the bugs and they're buzzing around outside. And then that's a good gut. A leaky gut is someone takes a screwdriver and jabs a bunch of holes in the screen, and instead of enjoying yourself on your vacation, you spend all your time trying to kill the bugs that are leaking in. That's exactly what's happening in your gut. Okay? It's really thin, and toxins are like that screwdriver poking holes in the gut wall. Being tired, oh man. They go hand in hand, don't they? Digestive problems and fatigue. Toxins interfere with your body's ability to make energy. We make energy in our cells in a part of our cell called the mitochondria. And the mitochondria is a lot like it's a furnace. It just pumps out heat, energy. But it's sort of like a nuclear furnace. It's kind of like really powerful, but you don't want it to melt down because it can destroy itself. Toxins, petrochemicals, those estrogens I was telling you about, they can go into the cell and kind of cause a meltdown of the mitochondria, And then that cell doesn't get access to much energy. And then what that person does is they crave sugar. Because mitochondria burn fat, and mitochondria burn protein, and mitochondria burn other things. But when we don't have access to our really good furnace, then we just crave sugar because all we can do is ferment. And this is getting into some biochemistry, but basically, if your mitochondria stop working, you lose 94% of all your energy, which is enough to make you feel not so great. And being fatigued, that's because your brain has a lot of mitochondria, and so does your digestive system. So anything that zaps your energy and takes your energy away will make it harder to digest, harder to think, and you'll be like this woman, and this will be like you at 10 a.m. and then maybe you get a second wind, and then at 2 o'clock you're down again. And you maybe make it through your shift at work and then you just go home and lie flat. That is a sign of toxins in your body. Allergies, definitely. That video mentioned asthma. So people who are exposed to airborne chemicals like in the home, some nasty chemicals are using to clean, in certain people that can cause an allergic reaction in the airway, and then you get an asthma reaction. Depression, you know, all you need to know about depression, and I didn't know this for a long time, I was thought depression meant like you paint in the color blue, you're really sad and you want to listen to, you know, heavy metal or really sad music just because you're down. But depression, all it means is that your brain isn't firing fast. That's all it means. If you do an MRI of someone who's depressed and compare it to an MRI of someone who isn't, the depressed person's brain just isn't active compared to the person who's normal, feeling normal. So toxins kind of turn down the volume of your brain. They make your brain not activate, and that makes us feel not very good. This is why some people get exposed to paint fumes in the building. Maybe they're remodeling the room down there and they're like, I can't even think anymore, and they have to go home and lay down. They get sick. So being exposed to chemicals, a lot of times the people who are exposed to that feel it in their brain first. Headaches would be another side effect of that. You know, stop painting with that paint, it's giving me a headache. Those fumes are giving me a headache, getting nauseous. That's your body reacting to the negative effects of the toxins. And most of the time when I say toxins tonight, I'm really meaning two things: heavy metals and stuff made from petrochemicals, okay? So all those, the story of cosmetics, you know, it's the story of the petrochemical industry. All the stuff that people put in their hair, it all starts out as oil mostly. And then they do some fancy chemistry to turn it into different stuff. But in the end, it's either an oil, like a petroleum-based toxin, or some kind of heavy metal, like she mentioned, like lead or mercury. Those are really the two main sources. A common complaint: my brain is foggy. I don't have good memory. I can't think anymore. This is not like me. I'm the president of my company. I'm a vice president. I have 6 kids. I get things done. But all of a sudden now I can't focus. I can't concentrate. You're looking at the effects on the brain of the toxin exposure. Okay. It's interfering with the neural networks of how the brain synchronizes. Brain fog. London brain fog. And then poor sleep. Huge problem. Huge problem. Sleep is all about a healthy neurological system. And toxins create inflammation. Inflammation steals your serotonin and your melatonin, okay? So in other words, let's say I'm like the guys working on the grass outside my office, and they're always spraying something that kills weeds, and I'm pretty sure it starts with an R and ends with a P, okay? And they're spraying this stuff, and if, let's say they are really sensitive to it, and then let's say, you know, the wind blows in the wrong direction, just blows it all up in their face, and they inhale a bunch of this garbage, and then they can't sleep for a few weeks. They don't sleep very well anyway. Well, what I would say is the toxin entered their body and created inflammation. It went into their air, went into their lungs, they swallowed a little bit, went into their gut, and now there's this kind of smoldering fire in their cells. And that fire is burning up their tryptophan, so they can't make serotonin or melatonin to stay asleep or go to sleep. So you'd be amazed how many people sleep better when they get on the right detoxification program. I had a woman email me last week who said, you know, for the first time in 2 years, she slept more than 6 hours. And if you're thinking about health and if you're thinking about healing, you have to spend the right amount of time in bed. And for most people, that's at least 6 hours. I like to say probably 7 to 9 is more correct. Women need a little more time in bed than men. But to really heal, to get better, to experience health and a vibrant life, sleep is probably the most important vitamin you'll ever give yourself. It's more important to sleep than to take a multivitamin, than to even probably eat the right kind of food. I mean, children sleep a lot, and even though they eat Twinkies and pizza, incredibly, they still grow into normal-looking adults. So there's something very powerful about our body, even though we treat it poorly, and I think sleep just sets the stage for success. But poor sleep problems, we definitely rule out a detoxification issue, a toxin exposure. So I just want to share a quick testimonial just to kind of give you an idea of what kind of things people are dealing with when they go into a detoxification process. This was an email I got a couple weeks ago. A mom with 2 daughters, a 17-year-old and a 19-year-old. The 17-year-old had been dealing with for several months, I think even a year, of waking up about 4 times a night. Really bad low blood sugar spells. So the mom had to make food and put it beside her bed so that she could wake up, roll over, eat something, and go back to sleep. 4 times a night for months on end. No one was able to figure it out. They went to the Mayo Clinic and said she had all kinds of antibodies to her sodium potassium pump. It has nothing to do with the fact that she can't sleep. So she's now only waking up once and doesn't have to eat. That's a really big win for her because she's 17. She's got a lot of growing to do, and she's going to go off to college. She has to be able to sleep through the night and be successful. The other daughter was dealing with rapid heartbeat, and her hands would turn blue, like so white that they would turn blue. It's called Raynaud's phenomenon. It happens to athletes sometimes, people in cold water, cold air. And just so you know, when you get a numbness in your hand, that's an electrical signal problem. Okay? When you get the pins and needles like your hand fell asleep, that's a nerve getting cut off. When your hand turns white, that is a blood vessel getting cut off. Make sense? And so all the blood vessels in her arm were shutting down and clamping shut because her body was so stressed out that it was over-dumping adrenaline. That was just squeezing the vessel totally closed, and so her hands would turn ice cold and white. And so what we did, we detoxed both daughters with a very similar approach, and she's only had a few episodes of this, and they're doing great. So these are some of the symptoms that you can fix by detoxification. And detoxification is not supposed to be this painful thing where you're like crawling over to the toilet every hour to, throw up or have a bowel movement. It's actually supposed to feel good and make you feel better if it's done right. So I love to look at this color wheel because it's really a pie chart or a graphical representation of what parts of your body are most active at what times of the day. Now this comes from the Chinese medicine world. It's been around about 5,000 years. And what I want to draw your attention to are the colors that are green and kind of purple lavender. Those are the parts of your body that are most active while we're sleeping. And we can take from that and kind of go with it and say, okay, the gallbladder is most active between 11 and 1. Patients say, I always wake up at 12 or 12:15 every night. Very likely a gallbladder problem. Patient says, well, I usually wake up around 2:30. It's weird. It's 2:30 every night. Liver, 1 to 3. Or lungs, 3 to 5, or large intestine, 5 to 7. What all of those organs have in common is that they get rid of garbage. We detox while we sleep. If we don't sleep, we don't detox. If we get toxic, we can't sleep. So it's kind of a snowball effect. So that's why sleeping is so valuable. Your body just repairs itself more than any doctor could ever imagine. Right? So people who have problems sleeping based on when they wake up, this chart is useful. Obesity and toxin exposure definitely goes hand in hand. As I mentioned earlier, your mitochondria, your cells like furnace, your nuclear furnace in your cells that provides all the energy for you, is usually injured when you have toxins, when you're exposed to toxins. That's a common part of your body that starts to malfunction. So when you don't have a good furnace, you can't burn big logs. If you don't burn big logs start piling up. And I use a metaphor in my practice that I think kind of conveys this idea. So imagine instead of a person, we're a house up in Stanley where it gets really cold. And you piled up all this wood on the front porch to make it through the winter. And it works really well when you take wood that's been, cut and dried, and you put that in your furnace for heat and to cook with. That's a good system. You cut the wood down, you pile it up, you cook it, and the house stays warm and functions. But what happens if, for some reason, you stop burning the wood on the porch and you decide to rip the cabinet door off, chop it up, and throw that into the furnace? Or then you decide to rip a chair leg off and throw that into the furnace. You're eating the house. You're breaking the house apart. And that's what a lot of people go through when they become too toxic, when they're unhealthy and imbalanced. The body's actually eating itself, and not burning the fat tissue that you want to burn. And this is one of the issues that we talk about a lot in our office, and it can be fixed. High cortisol levels is the main reason why that process goes on. If it goes on long enough, you end up chopping up so much of the house, there's not a lot left to burn. So we see some individuals with 40-45% body fat. That is someone who's been under a lot of stress for a long time. They've had trouble sleeping. They've probably chosen the wrong foods for their body for a long time, but that can all get better. It's just that's a really miserable place to be. To have a huge pile of logs and have a tiny little furnace to try to burn it all. It's going to take a long time to burn that off, but it can still happen. I do like this slide as well, because this is the scientific definition of skinny fat. We've all heard that phrase before. Skinny fat. How can you be fat if you're skinny? It's a paradox. It's ironic. But this is actually true. The point of this slide is to show you that they're comparing two different individuals. An individual on the right who is not skinny fat. They call this individual fat in proportion inside and out. The individual on the left, same size, same age, same shape, is thin outside but fat inside. How does that happen? That is due to cortisol and insulin being too high, imbalanced. And just as I mentioned in this house where the logs are continually piling up, eventually the porch is covered with logs, and now the logs are coming into the rooms, getting stacked in the corner, here and there. That's what packing fat around your organs is like. So when the body will pack fat around the organs when it's unable to burn it. And it's a really smart adaptation. I mean, believe me, if your body didn't take the fat out of your bloodstream and put it into something to store it, your blood would clot. You'd have an embolism or a stroke. That would be very dangerous. So even though your body's doing this, it's really smart. It's doing this to protect you. And so the individual on the left, if you look where that top green arrow is, you're looking at fat around the kidney. And then you compare it at the same level to the right, it's pointing at the same location. There's really not that much white there. The kidney's kind of visible, but not as much. And now at the bottom, we're looking across the midsection, and you can see it's almost white side to side on the left, and on the right, still there's supposed to be, it's normal to have some fat there, but it's not as white. So that's the definition. If you pinch them, you'd say, well, they have about the same body fat on the outside. But doing this test proves that certain people can carry fat on the inside. And how does that relate to toxins? Well, we just know that people who are exposed to toxins, who cannot get rid of them, will be forced to store them. And the best place to store toxins is wrapped in a piece of fat. Because if you remember from chemistry, way back in the day, or maybe you haven't had it yet, but you will. Water dissolves water, fats dissolve fats. They don't mix. Toxins are fats because they started out as petroleum. They're not going to mix anywhere in the body except in the fat tissue. So the body builds, storage shelves for all these toxins. We call it fat tissue deep inside the body. And this study proved it. This is a really cool study. They took two groups of people in London, basically the same groups, identical. They said to one group, okay, we want you to gain weight. Can you imagine doing a study like that? I'm sure they paid them a few bucks for it, a few pounds. One group gains weight. The other group loses weight. And they do blood work on everybody, often doing blood work comparing. And what they notice is that the group that's gaining weight has lower amounts of toxins in their bloodstream. Because as you build a bigger fat storage facility, you have more places to store the toxin inside your body. The other group, they noticed just the opposite. The more fat they lost, the more garbage they were dumping into their bloodstream. So this is my opinion of why doing really aggressive weight loss without detoxing makes people sick. It's why people lose weight and then bounce back and get worse. Because they've just dumped years worth of toxins in a month into their body, and they haven't actually helped that toxin get out. And so now the toxin has to get put back on the shelf, but now the shelf gets bigger and you have more fat. So detox is key. Great study, proved it. Toxins cause fat tissue. Where you carry fat tissue also tells a story. So researchers have figured out different hormones control where on the body you store fat. True for everyone, okay? So once you know what to look for, you can start looking at people and go, okay, there's a thyroid problem, there's a cortisol problem, there's an estrogen problem, there's an insulin problem. And what I'm saying is, in your body and in mine, our bodies put fat in different parts of our body in different amounts. And it's all under the control of hormones. For example, the beer belly. We've all heard it. We all know what it is. Has nothing to do with hops, IPA, lagers. Has everything to do with cortisol. That's what it is. You give someone enough cortisol and they will gain weight in this exact spot right here. That will be the spot where they gain the most. Now the love handles, they are not love handles, they are insulin handles. Sometimes you see a flat belly but a big thing to pinch over here. Well, now you're looking at the problem is more high insulin. Sometimes you see a woman who has a very large, curvy lower body and a very skinny upper body. Well, that's estrogen dominance. In men and women, estrogen makes the breasts grow, and it makes the thigh and the buttock get bigger. So you can start to see this, and clinically it makes perfect sense. You'll hear stories of women having, they grew up on a farm, all this crop duster flying overhead, spraying stuff on them. 30 years old, fibroids, tumor in the uterus, heavy bleeding, clots, hysterectomy or something. Sometimes, the average age of a hysterectomy is like 37, so there's young women getting them as well. And then she'll have a large estrogen pattern. So you have the toxin, the problem in the organ, and you have the fat pattern all line up to give you some ideas of what's going on with them. Okay. So you can use this, food for thought. Right by the knee, when you don't sleep, you don't make growth hormone. So if you don't sleep, you're chronically kind of like lacking sleep for months and months and months, even years. You'll notice that the fat tissue on the side of the knee gets bigger. And that's because the body's getting more and more deficient in growth hormone. And that's the whole point, right? If we don't sleep, we don't grow, we don't build muscle, we don't burn fat. So really fascinating stuff. The back of the arm is testosterone, and right under here is thyroid. So if you see someone with a lot of extra, if you pinch them here and it's twice as thick here than everywhere else, you're looking more at a thyroid problem. I saw a case of a patient who came in and actually was losing their hair. He was a 15-year-old kid who was going bald because he had some kind of alopecia that was like an autoimmune reaction against the hair follicles in his head, and doctors had no idea what to do for this kid. They basically said, you're going to be bald for the rest of your life. And a chiropractor, kinesiologist, someone who I've learned a lot from, I was in the seminar, said, okay, well, let's just take a look and see what we see. And he was able to, he had this little ultrasound device that would measure the thickness of the fat underneath the body and all these different spots. And the kid's thyroid fat was the biggest. And so we said, okay, it must be a thyroid problem because that's where the fat pattern is most thickest. And they put the kid on a thyroid protocol and his hair grew back. It was really amazing. So you never know what can happen if you just, use good science like this. So that was a really cool experience. So I mentioned earlier a little bit about infertility. I have a lot of women in my practice who have PCOS or some kind of insulin problem. A woman with insulin problems would have the following types of characteristics. She'll typically have a history of acne. She'll have maybe male hair pattern problems, maybe losing hair sometimes. That's a very common. A male hair pattern in a female means that her body's insulin resistant. She's making testosterone instead of estrogen. It's sort of this ironic consequence. When a man becomes insulin resistant, his estrogen goes up and his testosterone goes down. And it's just the exact opposite for a female. It masculinizes women and feminizes men. But you're almost guaranteed if a woman has an irregular period, there's a 90% chance that she has PCOS of some kind. Meaning, if the period's irregular, the insulin is a problem. All you have to do is live next to a place where they do that. And the woman in the last video happened to grow up on a farm where planes like that were flying over her house pretty regularly in this area. So toxins can cause a lot of the symptoms that that we ourselves and our loved ones feel as well. I have several patients who are, thinking about being mothers or new mothers or mothers to be, and they're detoxing and their pregnancies are going better for them. They have less pain, they're just more energetic. We just need to make sure that moms get rid of this garbage that they've accumulated before they give life, because what we know is what affects the mom was now passed down through the genes to the subsequent generations. And they figured this out doing studies on mice. And they would make great-grandmother mouse exposed to BPA, okay? That's all they did. The plastic toxin in plastic bottles. And then the next generation had a much higher rate of cancer, and then they followed it for the next generation, same problem, the next generation. They're scratching their heads, they're going, this is really, really weird. We give the great-grandmother the toxin, we don't give the kids the toxins, we don't give the grandkids the toxins or the great-grandkids the toxins, but they get the disease. And that's the world that we're living in now. We're living in the world that our parents have been exposed to, and now we're exposed to, and now the next generation. And so I don't want to overwhelm you with negative ideas. I just want to empower you with knowledge so that you know what the deal is. The deal is it's a toxic world, and we need to make an effort to protect ourselves. And what you're doing is you're protecting your genes. And your genes are programmable. You can make them better, make them worse. We talked about PCOS a little bit already. BPA is a big player in that. I'm just trying to let you know what is really going on so that you, with that knowledge, you're going to make a more informed choice about what you put in your hair, what you put under your arm, what you put in your mouth, that kind of thing, okay? Autoimmune diseases are things like lupus, rheumatoid arthritis, psoriasis, Sjogren's syndrome. Hypothyroidism is often an autoimmune problem. A lot of different diseases associated with autoimmunity. Toxins. There are documented environmental exposures that lead to autoimmune syndromes. So what the body's doing when you have an autoimmune problem is this. You're damaged on the inside, and your body's going through and trying to clean it out. And the more damage you have, the more the autoimmune antibodies are high, and the more the inflammation is going on. As you start to detoxify, remove the things that are damaging you, your body repairs, the autoimmune problem goes away. The fire goes way down, and people feel a lot better. So all these things we call diseases are really just physiologic responses by the body in an intelligent way to a problem. So we operate from the point of view that really your body doesn't make mistakes. It's actually smart enough, it never makes a mistake. Every one of our bodies is like a genius, and it knows exactly how to run the system for optimum benefit, but it's the driver's problem when it doesn't work. Or in most cases that's true. So that's most people, you just need to realize that your body, whatever your body's doing, even if we don't understand it, is doing something that it thinks is the right thing at the right time, and is probably correct. Thyroid is a complicated system. Iodine is a huge deal for thyroid problems. Most of the United States is iodine deficient. The soil certainly is. Toxins like bromides, fluorides, and chlorides cause us to lose even more iodine because they all compete for the same binding site inside your body. So there's a really great book called Iodine, Why You Need It, Why You Can't Live Without It. It's really easily written in a very clear, concise way, and it explains it really well. But thyroid disease, thyroid cancer is on the rise. It's like the fastest growing cancer, and a lot of that has to do with too many x-rays. So if you're going to go to the dentist, you need to go and get your face x-rayed. You need to cover the thyroid, and you don't want to expose yourself to more radiation than is necessary. Okay, the people who invented the x-ray machine, guess what they died of? Okay? Everything in moderation. And this is an important piece of information. The reason why it's important is it means, and it proves, that most autoimmune diseases are due to estrogens. And we've already talked about tonight how toxins are like estrogens. So the white bars are females. The black bars are males. What you notice is that most of the autoimmune diseases happen to women. Women happen to have a lot more estrogen than men. So we need to make sure that we get rid of our estrogen in a healthy way every day so that we don't have too much. Because it's easy to get too much estrogen, and a lot of people do have too much estrogen. It comes from the milk that we drank when we were growing up. We didn't drink organic milk. We drank the milk from the cows given the hormone. That's a source of estrogen. The same things that are causing these young women to have their period at 9 years old can be causing these diseases in older people. Estrogens make it worse. Don't smoke. Don't drink very much. And make sure to detox your estrogens, and that will protect you. Men, it will protect men from prostate cancer and women from breast cancer. So now we're going to get into the how do we fix this whole thing, okay? The way to fix your toxic situation, the way to promote natural detoxification, these are things you've heard before. You may or may not have heard this quote, but this is from Hippocrates. He's the father of medicine. He was a Greek scientist, and we credit him with being the first doctor. Let food be your medicine. There's no point in investing in supplements or a detoxification if you eat donuts every day. I hate to say it that way, but I do have people who come into my office and their glucose is 300 and uncontrollable diabetes, and what do you eat? What do you think is causing this? Well, I eat donuts every day. Okay, well, that donut is trying to fill a hole that a donut can't fill, right? There's something else going on. So food is medicine. On the converse, food is poison. So pick your medicine carefully. Heal the gut. We talked about the gut in the beginning. It's the #1 problem with toxin exposure. It's the #1 complaint in my office. And getting your gut working better will make every aspect of your being better. This is how you reverse problems with inflammation, toxins, and autoimmune diseases. You make sure you get the gut to work better. And it's not rocket science. It's just simple stuff that we walk you through, and it happens. People's digestion gets a lot better. The woman who literally, how often do you go to the bathroom? Maybe once every 7 days, more like once every 14. For 40 years. She's 50. So most of her adult life, she was constipated. I recommended that she take magnesium citrate, and she comes back in with the biggest smile on your face you've ever seen. She's gone, so she's had 40 years of constipation. She's gone to the bathroom every day for the last 7 days straight. She's totally psyched, and that's just part of what she's experiencing. So the gut is, you got to move that stuff out in a healthy way every day. Food allergens, they create inflammation. They make it harder for your body to detox. GMO corn and all the, processed food out there that's not sold in the store like this is itself a toxin. So it's not just the allergy to the food, it's the Roundup delivery system going into your body and tearing you up. So steer clear, and you will feel better. The only reason we take vitamins, and the only reason I use vitamins in my practice, is it's just hard to get all the vitamins you need from food. The soil's been changed, but all vitamins are, if they're the quality ones, is they're just concentrated food. They're not a replacement for food. They're just, you eat a good diet, clean for what a clean diet and designed around what your body needs, and then whatever you need to add on top, that's where the supplements go. Taking supplements and not eating right is like treading water. Eventually you get tired and you start to sink. So gluten, not a friend of mine. I've been gluten-free for 4 years. Many people have a problem with gluten. And getting gluten out of your body allows your body to heal in ways that it's impossible otherwise. I've seen people lose 30 pounds and improve their sleep just by going gluten-free. They didn't do anything different. They just went gluten-free, and it totally changed their life. So the inflammation that can come from gluten can cause a lot of the problems we've talked about tonight. It's not going to cause the, hormone problems we've discussed, but it is going to cause the confusion, the fatigue, the gut stress, the inability to sleep. That kind of thing can come from your food reaction in your gut. Blood sugar, holy smokes, that's a big one. Big one, okay? Probably the most important thing you can do as an individual to lower your stress and prevent disease is to balance your blood sugar. Insulin is so inflammatory. Insulin causes cancer cells to grow. It causes you to store fat. When your insulin is high, it is physically almost impossible for fat to leave the fat cell to be burned for energy. So people who are dealing with weight loss concerns, they're really dealing with high insulin levels. I'm the type of person who, when I eat incorrectly and I don't take care of myself, my insulin goes way up and then it goes way down really fast. The people who, so if you had to choose between what's more miserable, having high blood sugar or low, what would you suggest? So raise your hands if you think high blood sugar would feel worse. Okay, you guys are smart. What do you think so would it be low blood sugar? Would that feel worse? Absolutely. Oh my gosh. Low blood sugar can cause coma. It causes other symptoms like dizziness, sweating, fatigue, vision changes, shaking, pale face, inability to concentrate, like insatiable hunger. That's what low blood sugar does. People with high blood sugar, they're just kind of, they don't seem like they're that off kilter until you do blood work and you notice, oh my gosh, your glucose is 300. But so here's the takeaway for blood sugar. Instead of it going like this throughout the day, because every time you go up and come down, you're going to get sick. You're going to not focus in class. You're going to fight with your loved ones. You're going to get in an argument. You're going to get injured on the ball field. You're going to get in a car wreck. That's what happens when people are coming down a blood sugar swing. Now, you want to stabilize it. It's really simple. You just snack frequently. You don't eat every 30 minutes, but every couple hours you have some calories. Eat a handful of nuts. Have a piece of turkey. Have some avocado. Make a chicken salad with some avocado for lunch. Eat 2/3 of it, and then 2 hours later eat the other part of it. The idea of eating 3 meals a day, our ancestors would have no idea what that's about. You eat frequently. The only time you should fast is when you're sleeping. That's why they call it break fast. Okay? Sometimes patients eat dinner at 6, go to bed at 11. That's already 5 hours of fasting. And they wonder why they wake up at 4. What's 10 or 9 hours of fasting? That's as long as their body can go. So you have to snack again. If you're the type of person that eats at 6 and you're going to bed at 11, you need to eat again at like 9. Little snack, 10, piece of turkey, like I said, almond butter on gluten-free toast, whatever. And then go to bed. You're going to sleep a lot better. Don't ask your body to fast for 5 hours and then fast for another 8. That's too long. Blood sugar, number one thing to do. Doesn't cost much more. It's just about raising awareness. Low glycemic foods don't spike your blood sugar. That's how you keep the roller coaster from flat. That's how you keep your blood sugar steady too. Every time you raise blood sugar, you're going to get an associated drop. So we're always interested in just gently raising and gently lowering. It gives your body time to adapt so you don't get grumpy and turn into Godzilla. You guys seen that commercial for Snickers? I mean, I don't watch a ton of TV, but it's like, and they have some with Joe Pesci. It's a great commercial. It gets the point across. You get grumpy and your attitude changes. You can't focus in school. You're going to have attitude problems, behavioral problems, all kinds of stuff like that. It's all coming down to blood sugar. Super easy to fix. Stuff in that basket looked great. Eat that stuff. So, who here has heard of glutathione before? That's a weird scientific word, not one used in regular conversation, and I'm glad it isn't. It's your number one antioxidant. It's made inside every cell in your body. So we'll put it this way. Vitamin C is the best antioxidant, number one, most famous, that you take outside your body. Glutathione is the most important one that you make. And it causes you to remove mercury and lead and all kinds of garbage that we get exposed to. So glutathione is like a shield that protects your cells from the damage of these toxins that I've talked about. And exercising can increase it, and it can almost double it just from exercising. So people who work out, with a few exceptions, are just healthier. And you don't have to be training for the Olympics. You don't have to be training for the world's strongest man. You just have to move your body and do something that you enjoy doing. That includes dancing. It doesn't include bowling. See the difference? If you're not sweating, you're not really trying. And you don't have to sweat till you're going to puke. You just have to move your body and have fun. What would a kid do? That's why kids are healthier than adults. They just simply move their body. It's not so much about aging, it's just we just stop moving. And in my profession, it's been an old saying for a long time, where there's movement, there's life. So here we go. It's all about detox. Detox, detox, detox. So just another quick testimonial just to kind of give you an idea of what happens in the office is that this woman came to me last year. She had a knee replacement and she used to ride her bike 20 miles a day. And she's a very driven individual, very smart, kind of just always tracking very well, very, very smart person. But she kind of pushed herself too far and her body broke down. She got sick. She had a knee surgery, didn't recover very well. She could use the elliptical for about 6 or 7 minutes, literally, and then she was on the couch for a day. So her body's ability to produce energy had gone way down. 1 year later, I get this email. This was actually just a couple weeks ago too. She put this on our Facebook page. She just said she wanted to thank us for all the stuff we've been able to help her with. She went up for the longest bike ride she had in 4 years. So people, the best part about working on health is seeing people change and being a part of that process. Because you realize when people have the opportunity to change, then all these new potentials open up in their life, basically. And I just don't believe that we're put here on this planet to just suffer and bang our heads against brick walls all the time. I think there's good science that helps people with their problems. The problem is that the people who have the problem aren't connected with the people with the solution yet. There's all this incorrect thinking and rigmarole in the way. And what a better world it would be if each person with a different problem was able to find the right solution naturally, try that first. And if that doesn't work, thank goodness we have people who know how to use other sets of tools, because they are needed. They are needed sometimes. Here's a list of some of the common nutrients we use. It doesn't do it justice just for me to list them up there, but it's part of the presentation. The body needs many, many different things to optimize itself. And when our diet is working well, we get most of those things from our diet. But as I've shown, the genetically modified food, the way we grow our food, the stresses we're under, the toxins, increase our need for nutrition. And nutrition changes your genes. That's what it does. It communicates with your cells and tells your cells to kind of rally and do things that otherwise it can't do. Nutrition, a quote from my mentor, Dr. Rakowski, is a pretty good quote. He says that nutrition is not alternative medicine. Nutrition is the foundation of life. Where should you start? With the foundation of life or some complex surgery or medication or procedure that may not even get close to treating the root cause of the problem? So supplementation is just critical for detoxification. And then, I would just encourage you to think about your health concern from a 30,000-foot view approach. That's the best way to get the best results. Things that you may not think are connected, in fact, are. A diabetic with uncontrolled blood sugar may have a connection to growing up in Louisiana near a really, polluted area, and may have a connection to the hysterectomy she had 10 years ago because of all the estrogens she had in her body. And we know that our veterans in Vietnam who were exposed to Agent Orange developed diabetes. So we know that toxins can cause these problems. But it's hard to put that puzzle together. And that's what I can help you do.